Mr. Speaker, worthy members of the opposition, my esteemed partners and members of the Parliament, thank you for being here today. This House argues that Star Wars is better than Star Trek. I argued that Star Wars has a better production when it comes to special effects, makeup, and set design. And that is because Star Wars has better technology to use CGI for world building. They also use CGI to create the look of aliens, or they use dolls or puppets for their aliens, and it's much more realistic than that of Star Trek. My second case point was that Star Wars does a better job of character and story building. Star Wars has one consistent storyline that have these tangent storylines off of them. It makes it easier for fans to follow, whereas Star Trek has many different cases in different episodes. So, I do acknowledge your very interesting perspective, Fatima, of the simplicity of Star Trek's budget being more attainable and inspirational to students who want to go into that industry. And while I do think that that is a very good and interesting point, seeing as we are talking about students in their 20s, we're growing up in an age where TV and film has advanced so much that something like Star Wars with the advanced look of the film is what we're expecting. Star Trek is just not up to par with what is expected in the film industry nowadays, and not what's expected of people in their early 20s anymore nowadays. It's just not what we want to see. It's very cool that Star Trek did inspire so much technology, but technology, I believe, would have continued advancing otherwise. The technology that we have today, phones, televisions, were already created and invented before Star Trek, and so they would have continued advancing anyway. Technology is constantly advancing, so I do think we would have reached these standards of technology were it not for Star Trek. You mentioned that it's easier to start anywhere in the show, which can be nice for people to pick up anywhere and in Star Trek. And while I do think that could be nice for some people, it's not great for finding a dedicated fan base of the show to popularize and support the show, because Star Wars has so much of a storyline and so much for people to attach to and become kind of obsessed with and involved in. It's much easier for Star Wars to get new fans because there's so much world for them to learn about and to explore, whereas with Star Trek, if you can pick up and leave off anywhere, then it won't keep people's attention as close. I do love that you brought up the inclusivity and diversity in Star Trek, but that is not unseen in the Star Wars movies, especially the latest films and series. So I would say that it's awesome that Star Trek has that, but Star Wars also does have the diversity and inclusivity. So you bring up that, again, Star Trek is inspiring to students. You mentioned how it can inspire students who maybe don't have as much hope for the future as it is based in the future. And I think that is a cool point, a nice way to look at it. But I think that Star Wars can be more for escapism. In the world that we live in the lives that we lead, it can sometimes be helpful to have a show that takes you away from those things, which I think Star Wars does a great job of doing. Also, the relatability. You mentioned how it's a show based in conflict, and we have a lot of conflict in our lives here, so I think maybe there's more way to relate to the characters in that show. And again, with your case point 2, I would say that technology will continue advancing anyway. So even without the inspirations of Star Trek, I think we would still achieve greatness with technology. For all these reasons, vote for the government.